I wasn't supposed to be home that day. The trip to San Diego had been scheduled for the entire weekend. A partner meeting, followed by a 2-day strategy retreat at a hotel downtown. But one of the lead investors pulled out last minute, and everything got scrapped. My flight back was moved up. I remember thinking, as the plane touched down, how nice it would be to surprise her. My wife. We'd both been busy lately. Late nights, early mornings, half-eaten dinners on opposite sides of the couch. Life was rushing past us, and I wanted to hit pause, even for a night. So I picked up her favorite pasta from this little place on 9th. Creamy mushroom linguine, the one she always used to crave when we were first dating, and I even grabbed a bottle of wine, thinking maybe we'd open it and talk for once. Laugh a little. The moment I opened the front door, everything inside me stilled. At first, it was just a feeling, a heaviness in the air, like the room had been holding its breath before I walked in. Then came the details. The first was the sound, faint, but there, a dull, rhythmic thudding from upstairs, spaced out just enough to register as deliberate. Not something falling, not footsteps, something else. Then came the smell. Cologne. Thick, spicy, unfamiliar. It hit me like walking into someone else's bedroom, a scent I would have remembered if it were mine. I stood there in the entryway, my shoes barely inside, my bag slipping from my shoulder. She didn't hear me come in. Not right away. In the kitchen, 2 glasses of red wine were on the table, still half full. One of them had lipstick smudged around the rim, hers. The other had a slight oily sheen on top, like someone had just taken a sip wearing aftershave. Beside the glasses was a jacket. Men's. Navy blue. Slim cut. Not mine. Not even close. I stared at it, my brain refusing to connect the obvious dots. I think I stood there for a full 30 seconds, like if I didn't move, the scene would rearrange itself into something logical. Some harmless story I just hadn't figured out yet. That's when I heard movement from the top of the stairs. She appeared, one hand loosely holding the banister. Her hair was messy. Not just long day messy, but tangled and damp around the edges. Her face was flushed like she'd just run a mile. She was wearing a robe. Thin, white, barely tied. She blinked once when she saw me. Surprised, yes, but not startled. Not guilty. Not the kind of reaction you expect from someone caught in something they shouldn't be doing. "You're home early," she said, her voice even, almost amused. I didn't answer. I was still staring at her. At the way she carried herself. Calm. Maybe a little too calm. Her fingers smoothed down the front of her robe as she took a step forward. She looked past me at the table. "Oh, yeah," she said quickly, as if just remembering. "The neighbor dropped by. Steve. He needed help with some insurance forms. We had some wine while we went over it. He just left. Steve. We've lived here for 6 years. I know Steve. Middle-aged, 2 kids, drives a Prius, always smells like cough drops. The cologne in the house was not his." My eyes dropped to the floor, to something lying near the couch. A man's belt. It was curled up like a snake in the corner of the rug. Shiny buckle catching the kitchen light. Black leather, too new to be mine. She saw it too, and in a moment so casual it made my skin crawl. She nudged it aside with her foot. Not a word. Just a quick push, like it was some stray sock the dog had dragged out. "I thought you weren't back until Sunday," she said, glancing at the bag still hanging off my shoulder. My mouth opened, then closed. Every part of me wanted to say something, to ask why there were 2 glasses, why she was half-dressed, why the air smelled like a department store fragrance counter, but I couldn't find the words. I think I was afraid of how ready she seemed. That scared me more than anything else. She walked into the kitchen, picked up the wine glasses, and rinsed them out without looking at me. She moved smoothly, without panic, like this was just another Thursday night and nothing was out of place. "Didn't you have your presentation today?" she asked over her shoulder. "I thought it was a 3-day thing?" I finally spoke. "It got canceled. One of the partners pulled out." She nodded like she already knew. The whole thing played out like a scene she had rehearsed. And maybe she had. I placed the pasta on the counter. The bag was still warm, but suddenly I didn't have an appetite. She opened the fridge and asked if I wanted a drink. I said no. There was this surreal pause where we both stood in the kitchen, pretending it was normal. Me, sweaty from travel, still clutching my suitcase handle. Her, in a barely there robe, hair still damp, calmly screwing the cork back into the wine bottle like she wasn't hiding anything. I looked at her again, more closely this time. Her skin was flushed, not like a sunburn, but the kind of red that comes from heat, exertion, friction. Her eyes didn't meet mine for longer than a second. And still she smiled. That same practice smile she used when I used to ask how her day was. And she didn't feel like answering. She leaned against the counter. "You hungry?" "No," I said. "Okay, I was just going to take a shower." I nodded. She left the room. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, then the bathroom door clicking shut. I stood in the silence, staring at the belt, at the empty wine glasses, at the jacket that was still draped over one of our dining chairs. I walked over to it. No name tag, no receipt in the pocket. Just a perfectly folded handkerchief that I didn't recognize. I didn't touch it. I just stood there. I knew. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But every cell in my body was screaming at me. Something is wrong. And what terrified me most wasn't the evidence itself. The wine, the belt, the scent. It was how unfazed she had been. How easy the lie rolled off her tongue. I sat down at the table. The pasta was still warm, the bag steaming faintly against the wood. One of the forks from our wedding set was already out, like she had planned a meal, just not with me. I didn't eat. I didn't move. Just sat there, staring at the fork. At the ghost of someone who had just been in our house. Someone who wore expensive cologne. Someone who left in a hurry. Someone who didn't think I'd be back until Sunday. I barely slept that night. I laid there in the dark, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above me. Its slow creak the only sound in the room besides her breathing. She fell asleep fast. Almost too fast. Curled up on her side like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just walked into something that didn't make sense no matter how many ways I tried to arrange the pieces. I kept telling myself I was overreacting. Maybe the belt was old. Maybe the wine glasses were just part of a weird neighborly gesture. Maybe she was flushed because of the shower, the robe because the laundry was still going. But none of it stuck. Everything about the night felt staged. And that's when I started remembering all the things I had brushed off before. All the little moments that didn't make sense. Things I had chalked up to stress, coincidence, or just being tired. Like how she had suddenly started sleeping with her phone under her pillow. It wasn't always like that. She used to leave it plugged in on the nightstand, sometimes even in the kitchen overnight. But a few months back, she became weirdly protective of it. At first, I laughed and said she was treating it like a second limb. She joked back, said it was so she wouldn't miss her alarm. But then I noticed she started taking it everywhere. To the bathroom, the shower, even when she stepped outside to water the plants. I'd wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and see the glow of the screen lighting up the edge of her pillow. There were other things too, like how she stopped asking me to pick her up from work. It used to be part of our routine. I'd swing by when she worked late, and we'd grab takeout on the way home. Then, almost overnight, she said she was staying later to help train a new intern. At first, I didn't think anything of it. She's always been the type to take people under her wing. But the late nights got later. She'd leave earlier in the morning too, sometimes before sunrise, saying she wanted to get a jump on paperwork. She stopped taking lunches, started skipping dinner. When I asked about it, she'd get defensive. "It's just a busy quarter," she'd say. "Why are you making this a thing?" And maybe I wouldn't have made it a thing, if not for the motel receipt. It was about a month ago. I had borrowed her car to take it in for service. In the side compartment of the driver's door, I found a folded receipt from a motel on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place that doesn't ask questions. The date was 3 Saturdays ago. That was the same day she told me she was going to brunch with a friend from college. A girl I'd never met but supposedly knew everything about us. She came home late that day, said they'd lost track of time. I held on to that receipt, but I didn't say anything. I wanted to believe it meant nothing. That maybe she had stopped to use the bathroom, or got tired and pulled over for a nap. I came up with at least 5 different justifications, trying to convince myself that I wasn't the guy whose wife was cheating on him. Because that's what you do, right? You don't want to see it. You don't want to believe that the person you've built your life around is capable of betrayal. So you pretend. You rationalize. Until the evidence starts to pile up, and the weight of it becomes too much. And that weight was building fast. The weekend after the belt incident, she told me she was going to the gym. That wasn't weird on its own. She'd recently joined one of those trendy boutique places downtown with the eucalyptus towels and ambient lighting. She came back a few hours later, flushed, hair damp, gym bag slung over her shoulder. K***ler spin class, she said, heading straight to the shower. Out of curiosity or paranoia, I checked the bag. Her gym clothes were folded, clean, her water bottle still full. The soles of her sneakers were spotless. No sweat, no towel, nothing used. I zipped it back up and placed it exactly where it was. Later that night, I checked the gym's app on her iPad. A relic neither of us used anymore, except to stream music. I still remembered her login. Her last check-in was 5 days ago. She hadn't been to the gym that day. Something was wrong, and it wasn't just my imagination. The more I looked, the more things stood out. Her perfume had changed. She used to wear this light, floral scent. Now there was something heavier, earthy. It lingered even after she'd left the room. There were also the texts. I never looked through her phone. Still haven't. But a few times when she left it face up by mistake, I'd catch a glimpse of a message preview. Just enough to see part of a photo or a contact name I didn't recognize. Once, it was a photo of 2 hands clinking glasses, hers and someone else's. Another time, a message popped up from someone named Luca, saying, "Missed you today. Next time, I'll make the reservations." I asked who Luca was. She blinked, then smiled. A guy from the client side, totally harmless. He's obsessed with food, always recommending restaurants. It sounded reasonable, but now, in context, I remembered the way she said it, too polished, like something she'd rehearsed in her head. Another thing, she had started changing her appearance subtly. She bought new lingerie, sets I had never seen before. I asked her about them once, and she said they were for herself. Self-care, empowerment. Sure, I wanted to believe that, but she wasn't wearing them around me. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was living in a second skin. One that only came out when I wasn't around. Even our conversations had changed. They used to be full of warmth, shared jokes, the kind of shorthand that only comes from years together. But lately, every conversation felt like an interview. Filtered, measured. I'd ask how her day went, and she'd offer some vague summary. I'd try to connect, and she'd pivot to errands, chores, or needing sleep. Her smiles became mechanical, her touches brief. I started keeping a journal, something I hadn't done since college. Just bullet points, weird moments, odd behavior, dates that didn't line up. When I flipped back through the pages, it became clearer. Pattern. Her intern had arrived on a Thursday. She started leaving earlier on Fridays. Gym days always followed arguments. She was creating gaps, spaces in our routine. Spaces for someone else to slip in. The house didn't feel like home anymore. Felt like a stage. I started noticing how things were moved. The throw blanket folded a different way, her shoes pointing in directions I'd never seen. Once, I found a receipt for sushi delivery from a place neither of us liked, addressed to a Ms. Lane. Our last name isn't Lane, but the signature on the receipt, definitely hers. Copied it, took a photo, and still I said nothing. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I wasn't sure what I wanted. A confession? An apology? Proof? What I needed more than anything was clarity. Because when you start losing trust, every ordinary moment becomes a potential lie. Every smile is a mask. Every delayed reply is a red flag. And once you see it, really see it, you can't unsee it. She had secrets, and I was done pretending they weren't there. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of overcast day that sits low on your shoulders, pressing down with a weight you can't name. She told me in passing that morning, while pouring her coffee, that she'd be at a company event that night. Waterfront hotel, she said, not looking at me. It's a late one. I'll be staying over with the team. I nodded, said nothing. I was getting good at that, swallowing my thoughts, tucking them behind my molars like bitter pills. She kissed me goodbye, briefly, like she was checking off a list. Her hand lingered for half a second on my shoulder. Then she was gone. And that should have been the end of it. Another night alone. Another unanswered question swallowed in silence. But that evening, everything shifted. She called me around 9:30. I was on the couch, half watching a game I didn't care about, half reading the same sentence in a book for the third time. "Hey," she said when I picked up. "Everything's fine. Just wanted to check in. We're heading back to the room soon." Her voice sounded a little too upbeat, forced, like she was trying to sell a version of the night I hadn't asked for. "Okay," I said. There was a pause, then a quick "love you" before the call ended. Except it didn't. I don't know if she thought she hung up or if her phone glitched, but the call stayed connected. I was about to hang up myself when I heard it. Laughter. Hers. Soft and close. Then a man's voice. I sat up straight. The TV buzzed in the background like white noise. I listened. They were talking in low tones, the way people do when they think no one can hear. Muffled giggles, words half-whispered. I couldn't make out every word. But then I heard, "You're crazy if you think you can act like nothing happened tomorrow." Then her voice, lower now, playful. "Shut up." Another pause. Then the unmistakable sound of kissing. I froze. The kind of frozen where your skin feels like it's shrinking around your bones. The call disconnected a few seconds later. I sat there, still holding the phone to my ear long after the line went dead. My heart was pounding, not in a panicked way, but with a strange clarity, like everything in my body was aligning around one undeniable truth. This was it. The moment. All the questions, all the late nights, the lies disguised as casual conversation. It all landed in that instant. I opened the call log. There it was. A 10-minute call from her number. I took a **T. Backed it up to my cloud. Then I opened my phone's recording app and played back the audio. Still there. Still clear. Her voice. His voice. The betrayal echoing like a ghost through the speaker. I recorded it again using a secondary app, double coverage. Then I emailed both files to myself along with a timestamp. For the first time in weeks, I felt something close to calm. It wasn't relief. Not really. But it was clarity. And that was almost better. Because now it wasn't just suspicion. It wasn't paranoia. It was proof. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't smash anything, even though part of me wanted to. Instead, I sat there and listened to the recording 3 more times. Not because I needed to, but because I needed to stop questioning my own reality. This was real. She was cheating on me. It was happening. It had been happening. And she had no idea she'd handed me the truth on a silver platter. Later that night, I walked around the house. Not out of restlessness, but because I was looking at it all differently now. The rooms didn't feel like mine anymore. Every object felt suspect. I stood in front of our wedding photo in the hallway. Her smile looked different now, staged, practiced. Maybe it always had been. I remembered how she used to grab my hand during movies. How she used to text me good luck before presentations. How she used to fall asleep on my shoulder during road trips. Had any of it been real? Or was it just convenience? Familiarity? The safe choice until someone more exciting came along? The next morning, I didn't say anything. She came home around 8:15 a.m. Smelling like hotel shampoo and something else. Maybe his cologne, faint but there, clinging to her like guilt that hadn't showered off. "Morning," she said casually, tossing her bag near the stairs. "Event went long. I'm wiped." I nodded, pretending to scroll through my phone. I didn't even look up. She went upstairs and shut the bathroom door. I heard the shower start, and I just sat there, replaying the night in my head. Her voice through the speaker, the laughter, the whisper, the kiss. She had no idea I knew, and I wasn't about to tell her. Not yet, because if this was the game she wanted to play, deception, secrecy, then fine. I play it better. I spent the next few hours copying the recording to 2 different flash drives. I labeled one and kept it in my desk drawer. The other I hid inside an old watch box in the closet. Then I made backups on cloud storage under a different name. I sent a version to an old work email I hadn't used in years. Redundancy. Insurance. I wasn't just angry. I was methodical. This wasn't going to be some messy confrontation. No yelling match. No slamming doors. I was going to build something she couldn't deny. Something airtight. Something she'd never see coming. I went back through my phone history, dug up every questionable message she'd ever sent. Vague texts, missed calls, location pings from strange places. I even started taking photos of laundry tags, matching dates with timestamps. If she said she was at a client dinner, and I found the dress she wore still folded in the hamper, that was another flag. It was obsessive. I'll admit that. But once you've been lied to long enough, the truth becomes a kind of oxygen. You crave it. And now I was breathing again. It wasn't just about catching her. It was about reclaiming the parts of myself I'd been slowly giving up. The trust, the benefit of the doubt, the patience. All of it had been currency, and she'd spent it on someone else. Later that afternoon, she came into the living room and curled up on the couch beside me. "Do you want to watch something?" she asked. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt like I was staring at a stranger. Her eyes were bright. Her skin still glowed from the hotel's steam room or someone else's bed. Her voice carried no guilt, no hesitation. She smiled, like nothing had happened. I shook my head. "I've got a call in 10. She nodded and pulled out her phone, and I watched her scroll. Watched the way her eyes lit up when she laughed at a message. Wondered if it was him, but I didn't ask. I just sat there, holding the silence like a blade. I didn't confront her. Not yet. That surprised even me. There was a time I thought if something like this ever happened, if someone betrayed me like that, I'd explode. I'd flip tables, scream, demand answers. I'd make a scene, force the truth into daylight. But when you're actually in it, when the betrayal's not a punch but a slow leak, something changes. You stop being reactive. You start observing. And that's exactly what I did. She thought I didn't know, and that was her biggest mistake. Because every lie she told after that point, it became evidence. A week after the call, I saw a message pop up on our old kitchen tablet. We hadn't used it in months, and I only noticed it because I was wiping dust off the screen, planning to donate it. The notification flashed briefly. "Luca, thanks for yesterday. Same room, booked in advance." Then it disappeared. I stood there, blinking, like I'd imagined it. But when I swiped down to check recent messages, the app was empty, cleaned out. Someone had wiped the thread. But not before it slipped once. I took a **T. Then I dug deeper. The tablet was still synced with her cloud account. Probably a relic from when we used it to look up recipes together or FaceTime her sister. I checked the image cache and found several photos marked as deleted, but still stored in a hidden folder. I restored them. One stood out immediately, a mirror selfie. She was in a hotel bathroom, wrapped in a Berg *NDY dress I'd never seen before, holding a wine glass. I recognized the granite counter, same as the waterfront hotel where that corporate event had been. The photo was time-stamped the night of the call. That sealed it. But I wasn't done. I downloaded every image, every cloud-stored file. I cross-referenced locations, filtered dates. It was tedious but oddly therapeutic. Like solving a crime you already knew the ending to, just needing the proof for court. She never noticed. She was too confident. That's the thing about people who cheat. They start to think they're invincible. Once they get away with it once, they believe they always will. They start slipping. That weekend, she went to visit her mom. Said her mom was having a rough time with a cousin's divorce, and she needed to be there for emotional support. She kissed me on the cheek before she left and said, "Call you tonight?" I smiled and said, "Of course." Then I followed her. I waited 10 minutes after she pulled out of the driveway, then jumped in my car and tailed her from a distance. I kept 2 cars between us and stayed off her mirrors. She didn't go anywhere near her mom's house. Instead, she drove straight to the outskirts of the city, to a boutique hotel not even listed on major travel sites. One of those sleek, low-profile places with no front signage. Just a frosted glass entrance and a buzzer system. I watched from across the street as she met him outside. Tall, well-dressed, dark jacket. And they walked in together, arms grazing. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. I took photos from my phone. Then video. The timestamp did the rest. I left before she could see me. I already had what I needed. Back home, I made a copy of the video and stored it with the rest. That night, she texted around 10 p.m. Her mom's exhausted, poor thing. Just got her to bed. Gonna crash soon. Miss you. I stared at the screen, rereading it 3 times. I didn't respond. What could I say to that? Instead, I went back to her social media accounts. They were squeaky clean, almost suspiciously so. She'd scrubbed them down. Nothing too personal, no check-ins. Barely any photos of us anymore. Just wellness quotes and candles and vague updates like, learning to let go. But the comments told a different story. Under one post, a photo of her walking along a city street in sunglasses. Someone named Luca had commented, always a good view from behind winking face. I clicked the profile. It was private, but the handle matched the message I'd seen on the tablet. Other comments were subtler. One simply said, can't wait till Tuesday smiling face with horns, which she had replied to with a flame emoji, then deleted a few hours later. But I had the screensh asterisk ts. Patterns were forming. Dates, faces, places. Even the outfits began lining up. That Berg asterisk NDY dress? She wore it again 2 weeks later when she told me she had a client pitch across town. I remembered because she came home tipsy and said they'd toasted the client's interest with Prosecco. But on her phone, while she slept, I used the kitchen tablet again, logged into a synced notes app, and found a saved draft titled Luca Dinner at 8. Same place as last time. Same date. Same night. Another lie, disguised in lace and laughter. And still, I said nothing. I was building something stronger than a confrontation. I was building a case. I made an entire folder on my computer, hidden under a boring file name. Inside were subfolders, photos, screensh asterisk ts, audio logs. I documented everything. Her movements, her wardrobe, the gaps in her alibis. I matched credit card statements with what she told me. She said she was at the gym. The charge was at a French bistro. Said she was at a conference. There was a Lyft charge from a residential block on the other side of town. I even set up a burner email account, just in case I needed to send myself evidence if she ever got suspicious and wiped devices. One afternoon, while she was at a yoga retreat, I checked the home computer. She hadn't logged out of her email. I didn't dig too deep, just her trash folder. There it was, a deleted confirmation for a suite reservation. Luca's name was listed as the second guest. I printed it. That night, she came home glowing. Babe, she said, stretching like she'd just returned from a spa. That retreat was incredible. I feel so recharged. I looked at her and smiled. Glad to hear it. She didn't notice the difference in my eyes. That's how far we'd drifted. She couldn't even see that I wasn't standing in the same place anymore. Felt like I was watching a play. She'd memorized the script, hit her marks, delivered her lines with emotion. But I'd stopped clapping. And still, she had no idea the curtain was about to fall. It's a strange thing when your own home stops feeling like yours. Ours used to be warm, lived in, a little messy, sometimes, but filled with life. Folded laundry on the couch, mismatched mugs on the coffee table, throw blankets always slightly askew from movie nights. Little signs of love scattered in daily habits. Now, felt like a stage. Like a perfectly arranged set for a show I was no longer cast in. The throw pillows were always too perfect now. Aligned with precision like someone had straightened them before sneaking out the door. Candles burned in rooms we never sat in. Her robe, the white one, was suddenly always folded neatly at the foot of the bed. Like it had never been worn, even though I knew it had. The house had become a museum of careful performances. Even the kitchen had changed. She started organizing it differently. Spices arranged by brand, mugs all turned handle out like she was hosting a magazine shoot. Once, I found the wine glasses placed in the freezer, chilled, not for me. I hadn't had wine in weeks. I didn't even know we still had the bottle of Tempranillo she used to save for special nights. Apparently, there were still special nights. I just wasn't part of them. I started noticing food delivery receipts tucked into the trash like she didn't expect anyone to dig that deep. One night, while taking out the trash, I caught the name Marla G. printed on a delivery slip. Same address. Our address. Same last 4 digits of her card. But her name isn't Marla. And she never mentioned anyone else being over. It was sushi. A roll she never eats with me because she says raw tuna makes her nauseous. I took a photo of the receipt before throwing the rest away. It became a habit, cataloging these little moments. The mismatched receipts. The change in how she folded the bath towels. Suddenly rolled into tight hotel-like spirals instead of folded in thirds like we always did. Her closet rearranged with new outfits that still had tags on them. Expensive ones. Once, I saw her bring home a pair of high heels. She told me they were for a client dinner, that she'd be standing all night and needed something classy but comfortable. They were 5-inch stilettos, red-bottomed, loud, not comfortable by any stretch of imagination. Another time, I found a small silver ring tucked behind a bathroom candle. A man's by the size. Wide band. Plain design. No tag. No box. Just sitting there, like someone forgot it while getting dressed too quickly. I asked her about it later. It was in the bathroom, I said casually. Yours. She barely looked up. Oh, she said, laughing lightly. That old thing? I bought it online. It doesn't fit. Then she changed the subject to whether we needed to buy more almond milk. I said nothing. It became exhausting, watching her build an alternate reality and keep pretending we were still in the same one. Even the bathroom told stories. The mirror had smudges at shoulder height that didn't match hers. There were strands of hair on the sink. Not mine, not hers. Thicker, shorter, darker. I started keeping plastic sandwich bags in my office drawer. I collected things quietly. Hair strands, receipt copies, text backups. Every corner of the house whispered things she thought I'd never hear. She changed our bedsheets more often, too. Weekly. Sometimes twice a week. She said she was getting into seasonal fresh starts. That she read somewhere it was a mood booster. But I remembered when we used to leave the sheets until they got that comfortable, broken-in softness. Now they were always stiff. New. Like she didn't want traces of anything lingering too long. I once checked the laundry basket on a whim. Half of her gym clothes were still folded at the bottom, untouched. No sweat marks. No odor. Fresh like they'd just been taken out for show and shoved back in. She wasn't trying to hide it from me anymore. Not really. She just thought I wasn't looking. But I was. Every drawer. Every detail. The breadcrumbs she left without realizing. Like the unlocked iPad she used for Spotify, still connected to her messaging apps. I saw one ping while she was in the shower. Luca. Tonight was perfect. Still thinking about your dress. She hadn't even responded yet. The message was fresh, blinking quietly at the top corner. I ***ed it. Then I deleted the notification and closed the app before she stepped out of the bathroom. She emerged wrapped in that same white towel, humming softly like she had just returned from a peaceful retreat. I sat on the bed and pretended to be checking emails. She kissed the top of my head. Long day? She asked, brushing past me, slipping into the robe. I said. She smiled. Almost Friday. Like we had plans. Like anything was waiting for us on the other side of the week except more silence and lies. That night, while she slept, I walked through the living room and noticed something small. A faint indentation in the couch cushion, on the far end, like someone had just been sitting there hours earlier. It was shallow, wider than her frame. There was a faint scent, too muskier than her perfume. More masculine. I pulled the cushion back. Tucked between the seams was a napkin with a restaurant logo I didn't recognize. The kind of place with $25 appetizers and one-word names. There was a name scribbled on the napkin. Luca. Just that. Like a note passed in class between two people playing a dangerous game. I added it to my folder. The more I looked, the more the house seemed to reject me. I no longer belonged there. The photos on the wall, smiling beach trips, anniversaries, her 30th birthday dinner, felt like museum exhibits. A life that had ended quietly while I was still paying the bills. Even the pets started acting differently. Our cat, normally attached to her hip, had started avoiding her. I'd find him curled near me more often, hiding behind chairs, staring at her with wide, unreadable eyes when she moved around the kitchen. Animals know. Before we do. Before we want to. The house wasn't a home anymore. It was a stage she walked through, lines memorized, costume changes rehearsed. I was just the audience now, watching the performance from the front row, unable to leave until the final act. Sometimes she would play music while she cooked. Upbeat, happy songs from years ago, like she was trying to recapture something. I watched her dance once, barefoot in the kitchen, stirring pasta like nothing had changed. And for a split second, I wondered, does she still think she loves me? Or does she just want to keep me close enough not to ask questions? I watched the pot boil over and said nothing. There's something cruel about living with someone who's already gone. She was in the room, sure, breathing, smiling, cooking, folding towels, but her heart was elsewhere, with someone else, in someone else, and I was the ghost haunting my own house. I started sleeping less, eating less, dreaming less. I'd wake up with her beside me and feel more alone than I ever had. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. She was rewriting our life in real time, and every object, every scent, every subtle change was part of a new script. One where I wasn't the lead. Maybe not even in the cast anymore. And the worst part? She still told me she loved me. Every morning. Every night. A line she delivered flawlessly. I didn't scream. I planned. Quietly moved money, copied files, hid a go bag in the garage. Passport, flash drive, cash. She smiled, thinking I was still fooled. I nodded, played along. She called her nights training sessions. I called them countdowns. I was no longer angry, just done. I watched her lie with ease and knew the end was near. She thought she was in control. She had no idea I was already gone in every way but physically. She left for another client meeting. I didn't wait. I walked out with nothing but a letter left on the counter. You called and forgot to hang up. I drove to a nearby town, took a job in a warehouse, started over. A week later, I'm sorry. It meant nothing. Then, a photo of a pregnancy test. The timeline didn't fit. I didn't respond. She told too many lies. Now I let silence speak for me. Sometimes the loudest goodbye is the one you never explain.